From Australian wood ducks being called fishes in a cancelled feature race in Melbourne to sunny skies at Bahrain International. Hello everyone and welcome back to FIA Formula 2. In round 2 of its season, it is time to get going with what is going to be an amazing round as we take a look at our venue, and it is a track that runs to 5.4 kilometers, 3.3 miles, 23 laps for the sprint, 32 for the feature on Grand Prix Sunday. And it's 15 turns for the drivers in what is going to be a circuit that the drivers know well after 3 days of testing a couple of weeks ago. Now it's time for the real thing. Now it's time for the weekend to begin. In the commentary box, my name is Omi. Delighted to be with you once again. And alongside me, now taking a look at another virtual safety car test, is Tom Kens.
Hello, Omi. Hello to everyone tuning in for Formula 2's practice session for this weekend. The only practice session that these drivers have got throughout here. We are looking at the number 14 Williams livery car. That must be looking at the driver lineup, because I know it is Victor Martin. Yes, because he's now recently assigned to that livery. It was a different livery that we saw him in Australia. He took pole there. Sadly, wasn't able to convert it to a win because the feature race eventually got cancelled due to the heavy rain. So it was a big shame for Victor. But of course, he came away with some positives, and even more positives, the fact that he's now assigned to Williams' driver academy. He was previously in the Alpine setup, but now he's part of the Williams team.
Montoya with a change of livery there for Prema Racing as well, as he's adapted to a different livery, not part of an academy, however. But yes, Victor Martins, part of Alpine, released by the academy at the end of last year. They both parted ways, and now he's part of the Williams built. He's the 9th academy driver now that they have, as well as they're supporting quite a few, including Luke Browning, who was one of the great performers from Australia. As we take a look at Arvid Lindblad, and he is a driver that Red Bull want in a team next year in Formula 1. They are working on it, and he was one of the drivers affected from engine cuts and issues in qualifying, Tom Keynes, which is why F2 had to have a 15-minute shakedown before we went racing for the sprint. And there was a chance, basically, that the sprint may have even been cancelled if the shakedown went wrong and people were still having power cuts and everything was still going wrong with that. But luckily it all went well and we could go qualifying. But what it did do is ruin Arvid Lindblad's weekend.
Yeah, which is not good to see. We're looking at Kian Shields, who is hoping to make some form of improvement from what he had in Australia. He is hoping to get some points on the board this time around in Bahrain, which does open up a bit of a strategy race compared to a lot of other events. It is hard on its tyres. We brought the white side marked hard tyres this weekend, as well as the red side marked soft tyre. So some drivers will be thinking all too well with that brilliant Formula 2 sprint race in 2017, where Charles Leclerc took the opportunity to put some new tyres on and come back through the field to win on the final lap. Zane Maloney won both races here last year to kickstart his campaign. No longer in Formula 2 is the man from Barbados. He's currently racing in Formula E nowadays. But how will these drivers get on this weekend, including Dino Beganovic, who is one of those taking part in free practice 1 for Ferrari later today. So a promising weekend for the young Swede. I really can't wait to see how he gets on, not just in F2, but in Formula 1 free practice 1.
Yep, he is one of the drivers that is getting that experience later on. He's in place of Charles Leclerc. You've also got Luke Browning, who's also going in with Williams as well, which is going to be great to see. And yes, the two performances that you mentioned, Charles Leclerc, absolutely phenomenal. And that is still something that every time we get ready for a Bahrain weekend, that is always brought up, that's always mentioned. You always see clips of it on socials. And yes, a brilliant performance anyway from the boy from Barbados 1 year ago, doing the double, which no one had ever done when we came into a Formula 2, whether it was Formula 2, whether it was GP2, no one had ever done the double to start a season, and it was some way to take his maiden victory in Formula 2. He'd gone a whole year in Formula 2 without winning, and then he had 2 wins in 24 hours because the way the sprint and feature race works is the sprint is in the afternoon, the feature race is in the morning the next day. So he ended up with 2 victories as well. It was a brilliant way to start his campaign, a brilliant way to start his season, and a brilliant way it was for Joshua Dirksen a couple of weeks ago to start his season at Albert Park.
He is relishing the opportunity. He's loving this Formula 2 car. Actually, is Josh Dirksen. We weren't. I don't think Josh Dirksen had expected to be reaching the heights of where he ended up compared to how many fans had expected him to do compared to, let's say, Kimi Antonelli, because he did arrive in Formula 2 somewhat in the deep end only. But somehow he is able to take the opportunity and do a lot better than expected. He picked up his first victory last year in Baku in the sprint and ended the season on the high with a feature race win in Abu Dhabi. And he's continued that into this season, the sprint race win in Australia, and he's the championship leader coming into Bahrain. And hats off to him.
Absolutely. Hello to Plug in the chat as well. Great to see him as well, joining us across all of the streams as well, saying hello even before we've got going, which is great to see as we take a look at all of the different drivers on the circuit and in the pit lane as well. But yes, a great moment for Victor Martins to join the Williams Driver Academy, an academy which gives their drivers plenty of opportunities, plenty of chances as well. So it's going to be exciting to see how he gets on, as he'll hope for some FP1 chances later on this year, and we're going to be able to hear from him now.
How I can manage the season to bring the title home. I think they have the experience, from the F1 Championship to to support me on the driver's side, mental side, also the physical preparation that I can have from them, like some advice from all these things, and I hope to be back in an F1 car to get more mileage, get more learning about how F1 is working, how they approach certain things, and I think I can for sure use it for my F2 season. So I think they will overall support me as much as they can in the best way possible, and I feel super confident and happy with them. So yeah, it's good.
We know the Alpine Academy, of course, has had issues, and all of that's been going on, of course, with their drivers. It's not really gone well in the past. So it's great for him to be able now to join an academy that recognizes talent. While things didn't go well last season, there were multiple factors which we're also going to get into as well later on. But it's great to see that you have Williams recognizing how talented he is and what potential he has got for the future.
Absolutely so, and we've seen Williams give opportunities to the likes of Nicholas Latifi, Logan Sargent, Franco Colapinto, George Russell. Now, will we see Victor Martin in a Formula 1 car full-time in the near future? Well, this man is hoping to make an improvement. Kieran Shields in his first full season in Formula 2, and there is the Alpine livery number 12 in front of your picture. That will be Kushmaini. Aiming to build on a reasonable Formula 2 campaign for him last year, one of 18 different race winners, remember, so it's going to take some doing for that to be repeated in 2025. There are a lot of talented drivers in this field. Amri Cordial for Rodin Motorsport. No Christian Mansell back in the car at this moment in time. He's still away until we get any further news in relation to what we are going to hear from him. Amri Cordial's in the car for the time being on a track where he actually holds the race lap record in a Formula 2 car.
Absolutely, Amri Cordial, who didn't have the best of time last year though, when he had a retirement in both sprint and feature race. But we cut to Joshua Dirksen, who really is carrying the hopes of a nation. And it is great to see him doing well. When you are getting a podium at Imola, which, as you mentioned in the Formula 3 practice session, AIX really came alive as soon as they really came in and took over properly from PHM. First round, and they were immediately on the podium with Joshua Dirksen. And it meant a lot to him. He got a phone call with the president as well. And when you are getting a phone call with the president, you know how big it is.
Absolutely. It means the whole world to Paraguay. They don't have too many Paraguayans to cheer on in sport in general, in all honesty. But Josh Dirksen is very much becoming front page headlines over in the country, and he's on his way towards the end of his first proper flying lap. Is the 3-time race winner in this series, Josh Dirksen, heading through turns 14 and 15. Cian Shields, his teammate, is further behind, coming towards the end of his flying lap. We are seeing a little bit more running at this stage of practice in Formula 2 compared to what we saw in Formula 3 earlier this morning. Dirksen heading along with a 1:48.9.
Absolutely. Shields right now just pushing on as well. But as you mentioned, Dirksen, a winner of what is the Abu Dhabi feature race at the end of last year. He's also the winner of the sprint in Melbourne. So he'll be trying to make it 3 in a row. He'll be trying to make it 3 in a row. And we, of course, has a cancelled feature race in Melbourne, which is what I started by saying in this broadcast as well, where Arvid Lindblad was calling Australian wood ducks basically fishes, which was quite fun. All of the red flag fun that we were having in Australia. But it does mean that loads of drivers want to fight back, loads of drivers want to come back with a lot of confidence. The same confidence that Joshua Dirksen comes into after winning the only race, and Championship League, that's exactly what he wants. But there was lots of drivers like Victor Martins who had a retirement in the sprint. He was set to start on pole for the feature after Gabriele Mini's penalty, and he never got that opportunity. And just a bit of information, we did have the F2 CEO Bruno Michel confirmed that the feature race will not be rescheduled. If anyone is wondering why series like F1 Academy possibly do get their races rescheduled, of course there is a different CEO of Susie Wolf behind that, and also at the same time their races are 30 minutes, so it's a lot more easier to slot it in compared to an F2 feature as well. So there are possibly some 2 factors as to why it will not be rescheduled this year.
It's a shame because the drivers will have wanted to have done a little bit more racing, but as we've got the schedule as we do, it's just not quite possible to get an hour slot at least for a Formula 2 feature race slotted in. But there is Jack Crawford going along with a 1:48.9. He'll be hoping to make his way further up the field. He did win a race last year, did Jack Crawford, the American, who is part of the Aston Martin setup. As far as we know, he'll be one to look out for the season. Talking which of Aston Martin, a Formula 2 champion of 2022, will be taking part in free practice 1 for the team. Another session for Dragovic to get some mileage under his belt in a Formula 1 car. Whilst we are watching Sebastian Montoya, another son of a former Formula 1 racing driver. I think Montoya is the one to look out for this year. I'm really looking forward to see how he can settle in. He's obviously done a round already in Melbourne. Now, what we saw in Melbourne isn't a true reflection on where the drivers will end up at the end of the year. It's very easy for them to turn it all around. 6th place it was in the sprint for Montoya, but in Bahrain, I think it could well be a different race to what we had in Melbourne.
Yeah, and Sebastian Montoya comes in with the Kushmania approach that we were just talking about. And it's time to get an interview with Sebastian Montoya.
Feels really nice. It feels kind of coming back home with Prema as well. Obviously, it's a bigger car, a lot more power, it's a lot heavier. It's really different to the F3. I think that's the big thing. Like, I never expected it to be such a big change, and they've really helped me adapt to it. And I think, furthermore than that, we've worked really hard in the off-season to make a big step, and I've really been motivated to try to continue what I finished last year, being so competitive. Yeah, obviously, it was quite difficult because in practice we didn't really do a lap.
The Prema outfit, which he was in the lower ranks before as well, so that's a connection that will be helping him. And as I was trying to say, I mentioned this with Kushmani as well in the Formula 3 broadcast. He is searching. What he is searching for is this machinery to click. Sometimes you get drivers who just arrive at this level and it just works a lot more than it does in Formula 2. That's exactly what Montoya will be looking for, and it was a decent start, to be fair, with the result that he was able to get Sebastian Montoya. We take a look at Oli Gather, who arrived, of course, and made his debut in Formula 2 in the round at Monza, where he had to sub in for, of course, Franco Colapinto, who is trying to get closer to the Alpine seat in Formula 1 that currently belongs to Jack Du, and I'm sure the team will talk more about that later on. But yes, Oli Gather, the one of 3 drivers that are backed by the Red Bull Academy this year.
Lovely to see Gerther in the field for his first full campaign in Formula 2. Richard Verschoor, some may say, is the eldest statesman of the Formula 2 field, which is does sound a bit harsh for me to say that, but what I'm trying to say is he's the most experienced driver out of all the Formula 2 drivers in the field. It is a junior series after all. So I'm not saying that Richard Vishaw is old. He's not. I mean, I'm older than Richard Vishaw, and I don't quite feel old yet. Kushmini, meanwhile, in the pits, still working on that Alpine livery machine there. But you know, hopefully we'll see some running from him in the near future. Whilst we're seeing some drivers getting some tyre temperature in there, we look at Ollie Gertler again, heading through turn number 11. I'm a big fan of Gertler, actually. I do like his driving style. It just feels to me like he's got some racecraft in him to actually go out and perform. Maybe we didn't see enough of that during his rounds in Formula 2 last year, since he was drafted in place of Franco Colapinto at the MP Motorsports squad. But it feels like with the backing he's got every chance of a successful season ahead of him.
Yep, continuing on with MP Motorsport, of course, which do field Gertler, and Gertler does have the experience, Richard Vishaw, as we've already talked about, alongside him, who will be guiding him through as well. Vishaw, who's managed 4 wins, 14 podiums, been on pole position 2 times as well. Both of them coming last year on street circuits, one in Monaco and one in Baku. And yeah, he's had loads of moments in this championships where he's been disqualified, and loads of big sad moments, unfortunately, in his career, but it's great to see him still pushing on. And well, as we mentioned, of course, with Vishaw, most experienced, the driver in his 5th season. When would you say should there be a limit, first of all, and what do you think should be the limit for drivers competing in a category like this?
There has been discussions about whether there should be a limit, and I mean, we've got a limit already in F1 Academy, but it's for a very important reason. And I think for for a Formula 4 championship like that, I don't think you need any more than 2 seasons anyway. Formula 3, you don't need any more than 3, but it's just the fact that we've got multiple different Formula 3 type championships anyway. So how do you exactly legislate that? Whereas with Formula 2, there's no real series really other than Formula 2. I mean, some people say that Super Formula is kind of like a Formula 2 feeder series in a way, but it's like their own top level single-seater series in Japan. Answering your question, I don't feel there's any need to mandate the number of years, because some drivers are going to racing in seasons for some teams that may not be as quick as others, and they want to have every chance possible to go for the championship. Richard Vishaw, I think he knows that if it doesn't work out for him this year, it's probably best for him to move on and try other things.
Yeah, the driver who's set to have the most race starts later this year as well in FIA Formula 2. By the way, just for information, we reach race 200 in the feature race, so that will be a very special event. It will be our first feature of the year, and it'll also be the 200th race of FIA Formula 2. And that has been, of course, we celebrated race 100 in the Baku sprint race 2 in 2021, where we had 3 races on one weekend, but we didn't have F2 or F3 clash as well. Happy we're back with this format, where we get to enjoy Formula 3, Formula 2, all on the same weekend. Of course, throw in some Porsche Super Cups in the European rounds as well. It's definitely an enjoyable weekend supporting the Formula 1 bill, as we take a look at America's Jack Crawford, a very, very talented, fast driver, and unfortunately, it didn't really work out. He's been able to grab the 2 wins. He won the sprint at Austria in 2023, and then won brilliantly the feature race last year at Barcelona. A great performance that was for Dams as a whole, as Juan Manuel Correa got onto the podium that day, and he will continue to be one of the heroes of this championship. His comeback was absolutely extraordinary to watch, and it was so great to see him getting that podium 1 year ago.
Absolutely. Dino Beganovic, as we've mentioned earlier, about his plans for this weekend, along with his Formula 2 commitments. I really look forward to see how he gets on in FP1 in a Ferrari. Hopefully he gets a great amount of running in there, a lot of maybe may not a race one, but just some single lap pace, because he will have the luxury of, I don't know where he'll get a run in on the C3, which is the softest of the 3 compounds which Pirelli brought in for Formula 1 this weekend. But it's going to be quite different to what he's feeling in a Formula 2 car with the way the car behaves. There's a lot less downforce with this F2 car, fitted with a V6 turbo engine with that's designed by Mechachrome, and the Dallara designed chassis, which is supplied to the teams. Hence why it is an all-spec series and not like what it is in Formula 1, where the constructors, or each of the constructors, design their own machines.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a one-make championship, the single greatest one-make championship on Earth as well. And it is the final bridge between the drivers reaching Formula 1. If they can make it work, if there is a seat available, we have seen the very talented drivers like Teo Porcher, like Felipe Drugovich, who we've already talked about in this broadcast, miss out. And it is still quite sad to see those two haven't been given the opportunity. They put in some amazing performances, and they absolutely do deserve a shot. Drugovich just continuing to stick with Aston Martin, getting those FP1s, and hopefully maybe there's one race where if any of the Aston Martin drivers aren't here, he gets to fill in, and then he can show us how good he is. And we got very close to that. We got very close to that as well in 2023 in the opening round as well. I think Stroll was sick, but we didn't quite get to that. So Luke Browning isn't the only Williams Academy driver in the field anymore. Of course, with Victor Martins also joining the academy, and both of those two drivers were having quite a lot of fun yesterday, and they will be definitely working together quite a bit, even if they do drive for two different outfits.
Drivers just giving themselves some breathing space to ensure they get a good running. We've got an interview with Luke Browning. Oh, not with Luke Browning, sorry.
To get that experience, it's obviously something that they dream about doing as a kid, so even just to get to drive an F1 car once for them on a race weekend, that's great. Preparing for it is going to be tricky. One, with them jumping up to an F1 car, they obviously need to try adapt that way, but then they need to adapt back to the Formula 2 car for quali, bring their braking points back, cornering speeds back. So that first run in quali will be all about learning, and then the second run will be their main performance run.
Cleve Hatton as well, and he is he's the deputy team principal at High-Tech TGL. Of course, Oliver Oakes moving on and getting the opportunity with Alpine in Formula 1, and it is really great to be able to see as we take a look at Paul Aaron, who is going to be hopefully finding himself involved quite a bit with the Alpine Formula 1 team moving forward as Goethe goes quickest of all. But yes, it's great to see High-Tech as they continue to evolve and jump up and move on as Aaron meets some of the High-Tech team. But really, High-Tech a great team, and it's great to see them continuing to do well and definitely take more and more drivers higher up the ladder. Now, one of the more important things we've already discussed is going to be the FP1s, but it's a challenge then that comes for the F2 teams in helping the drivers adjust back. Now, we had this last year, definitely it was emphasized quite a bit with Isaac Hadjar when he, in his final round, needed a brilliant qualifying. And he did mention that run 1 wasn't going to go perfect, but the goal was by the end of the run that he would find himself higher up the order, and he was able to get himself up the order to 4th position, and that was definitely very critical for him. So adapting from going from F2 practice all the way over to Formula 1 and then back to F2 definitely can take a couple of time, but it's important to be able to adapt very quickly as well, because the F2 qualifying is very critical.
Absolutely. Here we see Leo Formula, the reigning Formula 3 champion for Invicta, hoping that he can replicate what Gabriel Bortoletti, Oscar Piastri, Charles Leclerc and George Russell have all been able to do, and win the Formula 2 and Formula 3 titles back to back. How do you think he'll get on this year, Fornaroli? Because he is a driver I do rate, but it's just the competition he's going up against this time around. Yeah,
so the competition gets higher, the exam question gets higher. He was incredibly consistent, as we mentioned. That's what got him the Formula 3 championship last year. He didn't manage to pick up a win. He got 2 poles. He got 7 podiums in that category. He's already started life in Formula 2 with a podium as well. That was last time out, and he also got 3rd in the sprint race in Formula 3 1 year ago around this circuit. But yes, for Fornaroli, it is definitely the exam question getting quite a lot harder as we want to lock up a mini at turn number 1. But it definitely gets a lot harder, and he is going to have to grab some wins, he is going to have to grab some performances. But once again, if he can just be consistent, if he can get those seconds, if he can get those thirds, like he did to start the season in Melbourne, he's going to get the chance. Because if we remember back even 2 years ago, Teo Porcher, his one and only win on his way to the title came around this circuit by about 25 seconds. Ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous by F2 standards, but it was his only win, and he managed to get that by about 30 seconds in the feature race. And yes, that got him to the title. He was just consistent in getting the results that he needed, compared to Vesti, who of course got a lot of wins, but definitely had a lot of bad days as well at the same time.
We saw a look up from Arthur Lindbergh there, flat spots in the right front. Nice way to turn one. Alex Dunn, you could just see in your picture, one of many rookies in the field, the Irishman, part of the McLaren setup, and with Rodin Motorsport. He is on his way through Sector 1. Where does he compare to Pepe Marti? Well, he's slightly down by a tenth. Is done. He's looking to just make an improvement on what he's already done. This is not his best first sector by any means. He's sitting third behind Victor Martin and Pepe Marti. But he has had a promising start to life in Formula 2, I think, has done despite the incidents he's been involved in. But he has shown some strong pace from what we saw from him in the test as well as here so far.
Yeah, Alex Dunn. We first covered him on the channel during the Macau race in 2023. It was the first edition that we actually covered of Macau here on this channel, and now we look to make that a more regular thing and do it yearly as well, like we did it last year. But Alex Dunn, it was a brilliant way, it was a brilliant performance, and he kind of had a Freddie Slater style weekend, where he came in, showed his talent up against these F2 drivers, showed his talent absolutely perfectly, and then had a crash in the main race trying to go for it all to win it, which absolutely was fine. I think Freddie Slater, last lap, he had a crash. Alex Dunn had the crash on the opening lap. They were both trying to get themselves in a position. No one's going to remember you finishing in fourth. You have to try and get into the third at Macau. It's not really a championship event. It's just a one-off event, so it's absolutely worth it trying to get yourself at least onto the Macau podium. And both of them took the risk, but what they both were able to do was show their talents, and that was the first time that we covered Alex Dunn as well on this channel, as I mentioned. And then he arrived in Formula 3 last year, had a couple of great performances. Nothing, unfortunately, much in terms of a race victory for Alex Dunn, so he'll be definitely looking to try and replicate that. He managed to get 2 podiums last year, did the Irishman, and he's another driver, as we mentioned, carrying the hopes of a nation, and he will be hoping that he can pick up a victory and get Ireland on the top step of a podium on a Formula 1 weekend.
I'd imagine he'll want to do someone like Eddie Jordan very, very proud, who he sadly lost not too long ago recently. Hopefully we'll see Alex Dunn on the Formula 1 grid in the near future. Victor Martin in the Williams liveried ART coming through to turn 12 through sector 2. What does he compare to Marty? Slightly down. You can just tell he is within range and just trying to find time everywhere he can. Leo Fornaroli is also on a lap. He's gone purple in sector 1 and he's about to go through sector 2 now. Hopefully they'll have kept the pace up during the course of his tour. And he's actually down by sector 2. We'll keep an eye on Victor Martin all the way through to the end of the lap. Where does he go here? He is second fastest behind Martin by 8 thousandths. Does he go to the top? He doesn't improve in the final sector or his lap time overall and remains in second place. Leo Fornaroli coming round the last corner now. The Italian hoping to build on his podium in Australia. He's 5th at the moment. Does he improve his time? He does not. He remains in 5th position. It feels to me like the hard tyres are falling away at this point. They've already got some running in before they had a second bite at it. But I think by the time they are coming towards the end of their second run, the hard tyres are falling away. We've just seen a replay. This is Amri Cordial getting a kick of oversteer at turn 7 and running out wide, but no harm done. And here's another example of a driver locking up into turn 1. That is Luke Browning in the high-tech car. And you can just see just about making the apex, but not without somewhat of a flat spot on that front left.
Absolutely, tyres are going to be key once again in the sprint, especially. You have to try and get that from the start to the finish. There's no mandatory pit stops in the feature race. You do have to make a mandatory pit stop, and that'll also be vital as well, the timing of that, and how long do you prepare to risk it as well, with how long do you take the stint, or if you pit too early, then you have to do a bit more work near the end as well. So the feature race is going to be very interesting when it comes to Grand Prix Sunday. As I mentioned, it will be race 200 of this FIA Formula 2 Championship. I'd also like to take the moment to wish Nina Gademan well, who had a crash in Saudi Arabia F1 Academy in-season testing as well on day 2. And hopefully she will be able to recover well. There was also a crash for Marta Garcia. I'm happy to hear that she's also doing very, very well as well. But yes, there has been quite a few crashes in motorsport lately, haven't there?
Yeah, which is not good to see. As much as we do enjoy the competitive nature of this sport, it doesn't go without some form of accident. which a driver is going to endure at some point in their career. But thankfully, Nina Gaiman and Marta Garcia are making fast recoveries, and we should see them back on a racetrack sometime soon. Hopefully, Nina Gaiman will be fit enough to race for the next F1 Academy round in Jeddah next weekend. Jack Crawford had to back out of his latest lap. He made a mistake during it. We might be able to get a replay as to where he had gone wrong there. 2 seconds separating the whole field from Pepe Marti, who's fast, as you can just see in your picture in the pit lane. Getting some shade around Bahrain. It is a very hot affair here compared to how they got on in the test. Where are we now with track and air temperatures, Amy?
Well, track temperature is 20.6 degrees, and air temperature is 35.6, which is absolutely wild. It is definitely very, very hot, so the drivers will be trying to keep very, very cool as well. And it's definitely a tricky weekend. It's definitely a tricky weekend with the conditions as well. Loads of these drivers, especially with the lower junior championships, they don't go here. Of course, you would have the if the drivers do race in the regional Middle East Championship, then they would get a chance to come here. But if you don't really go to those levels and you mostly just keep it in the European areas, you don't really get to experience humidity like this too much as well. So definitely a challenge, with also how fast these cars are and the challenge that they have as well, especially after the sessions.
Luke Browning on his latest flying lap for High Tech. He did make that flat spot into turn 1, but he's still able to keep the tyres intact so far. He is currently 6th on the tyre pages. He goes over the line and he does not improve his time. He actually does improve his time, but not his position. For Luke, Sebastian Montoya enters the last couple of corners now for Prema, who's running a different livery this weekend to what he had. I think that kind of feels like the Mumbai Falcons type livery that he's running there is Sebastian. Going over the line, it's 17th fastest. And there is a black and white flag for Ollie Gerfer for failing to follow the race director's instructions. It's a practice start infringement. So presumably he's done a practice start in the wrong place to where the designated spot is. The drivers are briefed on that prior to the race weekend where they do their practice starts at.
Gabriele Mini out of the final corner, and the driver who qualified on pole and then got that grid penalty due to blocking in qualifying. In practice, he's right now just ahead of his teammate in 17th position. And yeah, it was really good, Gabriele Mini, when he arrived in Formula 2 last year for the one round that he had in place of Ollie Behrman. And remember, we have to remember, that was 2 weeks after losing the Formula 3 championship after the last corner. In the end, it didn't mean anything because he got disqualified anyway, but in the moment, he lost it in a big way and he knew the chance fell away there. And to fight back, to keep his head cool, to fight back 2 weeks later in Baku and get a podium, which he was the first driver since 2010, Jules Bianchi, to score a Formula 2 podium mid-season on debut as well. So it definitely was a great performance, and he's carried the momentum into this season, and he's called by lots to be possibly our champion driver by the end. So it was a great way to start the season originally before he got the penalty, and then he didn't really get his chance to shine in the feature race, with it of course being cancelled. So he's one of the drivers hoping and looking to bounce back 100% this weekend.
Hopefully we'll see more from Gabriele Mini in the near future. We saw a lockup from Dino Beganovic on a slow-mo at turn 10. And we are now looking at Victor Martin. He'll be a very happy man now that he's signed up to the Williams Academy setup. Hopefully we'll see him maybe taking part in Formula 1 practice sessions in the near future. Bearing in mind, each Formula 1 car will have to sit out 2 practice sessions to allow drivers that have done 2 Grand Prix or less to get a go in the machine. When I say the cars sitting out, as in the full-time drivers, that's what I was meant to say. We are seeing drivers coming back into the pit lane now, probably just to cool the tyres off for the time being, because it is a very hot racetrack, both air and track temperatures, with Tomo Miyata, who's in P8 in the ART livery there compared to what his teammate is running in. One driver we'll give a shout out to is Sami Megatuniv in the Trident, who is in P4, only a 10th off the pace to what Pepe Marti has set the standard for. Megatuniv, who had a very troublesome time in Australia with the incidents he had been involved in, but so far this weekend, today, he has shown that there is more in him than what we've already seen.
And Trident need that. They had a disaster. Now, we were covering on JB Motorsports the Formula 2 and Formula 3 tests, and we did day wrap-ups every single day after the action. and I can't remember saying anything good about Trident across those 3 days. So in Formula 2 it was absolute disaster. In the only race that we had, Estes and Megatune both crashed anyway. So yeah, it's been a horrible start, so they need to get the season going. As you mentioned, perfect opportunity. We're here at Bahrain, a circuit that drivers know well. It's a perfect chance to get your season up and running, because after this, when we head to the European rounds will be ticking. You need a bit of confidence heading into those European rounds. Of course, we head to the Jeddah Corniche circuit in a week's time, a double header for FIA Formula 2, and that is going to be fun. We've always had chaos, we've always had plenty of action and amazing racing around that venue. So looking forward to more of the same in 7 days time. But right now, we still have a full weekend to go. We have 9 minutes to go off this Formula 2 practice session that has Pepe Marti currently at the top of the table. And in the commentary box, I'm Omi alongside Tom Cairns talking you through this session, as well as most of the field in the pit lane, just cooling their tyres and getting everything set up to head back out onto the circuit.
Formula 2 contesting 14 rounds across 2025. As Omi mentioned, we go to Jeddah next weekend, then it's off to Imola, and it's Monaco, Spain in Barcelona, then Red Bull Ring in Austria, Silverstone, Spa, Hungaroring, Monza, and it's off to Baku in Azerbaijan, and it's off to the Middle East for the last run-in of the season in Lusail, Qatar, and Yas Marina, Abu Dhabi, where we expect the Formula 2 Championship to go down to the last round. If last year was anything to go by, we are in for a very intriguing season of Formula 2, and its 9th edition since the Monaco had begun in 2017.
Yep, 9th edition, and as we mentioned, we'll celebrate Race 200 later on this weekend, another landmark for this incredible series, which it was great to see drivers getting the chance to go to Formula 1, plenty of them last year coming into this year as well, and we'll hopefully get more of the same with Arvid Lindblad. I think it's very clear that Red Bull want him. He's got enough super license points, so that will be the case for him. But if you are another driver like Pepe Marti, you're trying to get yourself involved in the conversation. You don't know what's going to go on at Red Bull. I mean, here's the thing at Red Bull: everything looks calm for one moment at times, and then it all goes wild. So you never know. So Marti, all he needs to do is perform. And he was a driver who got very unlucky last season with a lot of incidents, with a lot of moments. 7 retirements last year. And he's a driver who, around this circuit, when he arrived into Formula 2, he was able to get a 2nd and a 3rd. It was a double podium to start the season on his debut weekend in this championship. But unfortunately after that, it was just plenty of retirements, plenty of reliability issues, plenty of incidents, with a lot of them not being his fault.
You know, Marti's a good driver. I've always rated Pepe, and I'm hoping he can go further this season to what he had of last. He left it late to get his first win of the season. He took the sprint race win in Abu Dhabi. He goes over the line with a purple final sector, but no improvement to the lap time overall. But I do think Marti will have a more successful season. I think about what happened with Isaac Hadjar when he first arrived in Formula 2. It was a huge learning curve for him, hence why we didn't see him towards the top. In his sophomore season, that's when he came alive and started being the Isaac Hadjar that we all waited for and we all know and love. Keane Shields, again, locking up at turn 14. He's had a really tricky session so far with so many lockups and missing the apex to corners. Keane Shields still learning the ropes of this Formula 2 car compared to the others. There is the number 17 McLaren livery car of Alex Dunn, 3rd fastest still. A great session so far for him. To run down on how Formula 2 will work this weekend, we've got 45 minutes of practice. It's a half an hour qualifying session later today, which will determine the grids for races 1 and 2. The top 10 qualifiers get reversed for the sprint race on Saturday, with the feature race to follow on Sunday with a mandatory pit stop where drivers can take their stops from lap 6 onwards. Alex Dunn has been noted, by the way, for failing to follow race director's instructions, and it's for a practice start infringement, something which Ollie Goethe has also been noted for, but I don't expect anything major to come out of that. If anything, most likely to be a fine for either him or the team if anything comes around.
Yeah, interesting point you mentioned about the drivers taking different times to adapt back, to adapt to Formula 2 as well. You get drivers like Mini who it instantly clicks where you're getting a podium in your first ever race mid-season. Or you can have drivers like Isaac Hadjar or Zane Maloney who will go a long way without getting on the top step. Who will not be able to do much in their first season, but in their second season, they really learn. They're really able to get going with themselves and show their talent fully to a Formula 1 team where it fully can change. And I think Marty, as you mentioned, it's a perfect example because he was exactly in this situation. I don't think anyone would have predicted Isaac Hadjar to be finding himself in a Formula 1 seat last year if we were, well, if we just finished the 2023 season and we were just discussing about Isaac Hadjar. I don't think we would have found ourselves in a situation with a possibility that it looked likely that he was going to be in Formula 1 this year. So Marty has the same chance to perform this year and show his class, show his talent, and build upon the one win that he got at the end of last year in the sprint race in Abu Dhabi, as you mentioned, and just go forward from there, get the performances in, get those feature race wins, just be consistent, as Alex did, really fighting away with the car on this lap, but just get those wins, and then he could find himself in championship contention. And really, we all know that it's not all about wins, it's just being consistent in this championship.
Yeah, and we have seen in the past where drivers only picking up one win, like Teo Pocher did a couple of years ago. He took his only victory here in Bahrain on his way to the title. Alex Dunn, you can just tell that the rear tyres are falling away on that machine as the session is about to reach its conclusion. But they are set to a certain amount of fuel for the session, which they cannot refuel in the pit lane. They can only do that in the support paddock before the session begins. So they are quite limited on the amount of running they can do. There is last year's Formula 2 champion, Gabriel Bortoleto, a Sauber driver nowadays. Still yet to score his first points in Formula 1, but I'm sure it'll come soon enough for him. And you'll be looking on as a happy man heading into the weekend on a track that he knows very, very well from his Formula 2 and Formula 3 days. This is a replay of, this is Amri Cordeal now, who's the third driver to be noted for a practice start infringement. Behind him is Alex Dunn, his JBMotorsports teammate. They've both seem to have fallen foul of it. It looks like you can just see the grid spots there, which is presumably where the practice start is meant to be done at. They seem to have done it a few meters before then, so that is why the stewards have taken note of that. Luke Browning on circuit in the Williams Academy car for high-tech racing. You can just see the car sliding around there and a lock-up for good measure into turn 8. That tells you how much the drivers are pushing at this stage. But they've just got to remember that these are not going to be the conditions for later on. They may be the conditions for Sunday's feature race, but for now, these are qualifying times that they are essentially trying to put in for later.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to see Bortoleto, by the way, and also with the Invicta team. Even when the drivers do move on to Formula 1, they do like to keep in connection. They do like to go and meet their team constantly whenever they can. And that's the great thing about having this series. They're still in the same paddock, they're still in the same area, and you will see Formula 1 drivers going, Formula 1 drivers going and seeing their Formula 2 and Formula 3 teams as well of the past. And it is always great when we do get to see those connections. Oliver Goethe currently pushing on. Here we go. Oh, that's going to be a big moment for Luke Browning. Big lockup coming into the braking zone. And he was all out of shape a couple of meters before that as well, as Montoya has to get out of it further back. And we're getting multiple lap times coming in. And Oliver Goethe is fastest of anyone in Sector 1, in Sector 2. Now we're about to add it all up in a couple of moments time for the Red Bull Junior, and it's a lap time that should see him go to the front of the field with ease. But now we'll take a look and see whether anyone else can beat him as Mega Tunif is coming round the final corner. You've got the 14th and then the 15th final corner on this racetrack as well, and Mega Tunif does not improve on that time.
He lost time in the final sector, did Sammy Mega Tunif. Richard Bashaw heading over the line, second fastest in the MP Motorsport car. He's able to preserve his tyres until last. Promising session for him. Oh, MP12 now. Going back to the same about Luke Brennan. I don't know whether he got distracted by the slow moving car at turn 14. This is a replay of him getting a tank stopper as he took the curves on the inside of turn 7 and then a lock up into 8. And we are going to see a moment on his of him running wide there. That's Sebastian Montoya, who I think did everything he needed to have done there. I think Luke Brennan just got distracted by the fact that he was there and wasn't exactly concentrating on his own driving into turn 14. But anyway, it's practice, so nothing for Luke to be worried about at this moment in time. This is Gabriele Mini on his final attempt. The Czechoslovak is about to fall here in Sakia. Mini, who is currently sitting in 17th position in the Prema, which is very unlike where a Prema driver would end up. But we are heading towards the line for the young Italian Jack Crawford, going up into 5th position for Dams. Mini, meanwhile, heading over the line himself. Where does he fit in with the others? P5. That's a much better improvement there for Gabriele Mini. It's a purple final sector. So that tells you about the Czech evolution, with the drivers setting their final lap times as the session reaches its end. There is C. Felipe Dragovic, who will be in the Aston Martin car for FP1 later on. The Formula 2 champion of 2022, giving us a little wave to the camera to show he is happy. But now we are heading towards the end of this practice session for Formula 2 in 2025, as we look at Ollie Goethe, who has every reason to have a smile on his face, as will his teammate Richard Verschoor.
MP Motorsport 1 and 2 then in this session, as you mentioned. Oliver Goethe doing well in this practice session, but it can all change when we get to qualifying, and it all will change as well, as the sunset will come and we'll hold Formula 2 qualifying right before the Formula 1 practice 2 session. But talking about Formula 1, that is exactly what we have coming up next, and make sure you do watch that to see some of our very own from this field, past and present, all taking some drives in Formula 1 in the FP1 session. Pepe Marti in third as well, he'll be happy with that one. Victor Martins and Gabriele Mini, two of the drivers who we referenced earlier in terms of trying to kickstart their season properly as well with the weekend here at Bahrain.
Great session, a lot of action to come throughout the weekend on JB Motorsports as well. A total of 46 streams, if I remember rightly. Yes, it is probably one of the busiest weekends of motorsport across the motorsport calendar. I'm sure there'll be many more busy weekends to come throughout the spring and summer part of the year. And we are happy to see some action throughout this weekend. It's not quite Easter yet, but it is another week away for people to celebrate, of course, on that weekend before Easter Monday, or it will be an Easter weekend, won't it? So we've got the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix weekend with Formula 1, Formula 2 and F1 Academy racing there, which is very, very exciting to see. Victor Martin, who took pole position in Albert Park before the rain had cancelled the feature race on Sunday. How will we be feeling going into the weekend? We shall see.
Indeed, and yes, 46 streams. Even Monaco last year, any of those weekends don't come near it as well. 46 streams, absolutely wild. And well, it's quite interesting that we only started talking about this weekend in specific for 2 weeks, and yet we're fearing Monaco, which won't have that many streams compared to this as well. It's absolutely a wild but enjoyable weekend for all of the viewers. There's so much action, you have so much to pick from, you have so much to watch, and it is time to officially talk about our results from this session, as they will come up in a couple of moments time. But a really, really interesting session, and it leaves us with an interesting qualifying later on as well. Let's quickly take a look at a replay of Ollie Goethe, just a few moments around the lap as well for the German driver. He is one of Germany's hope as well to have a Formula 1 driver in the coming years, and he of course had a big crash on debut last year in the Formula 2 race, where he was sideways down the start finish straight after making contact with Zach O'Sullivan. But now it is time to see what now it's time to look ahead to what's going to take place in qualifying. It's going to be really, really fascinating to see who grabs the 2 points of pole and who can slot themselves into the reverse grid places for tomorrow. But here we go, it is time. Third, Victor Martin is ahead of Gabriele Mini. Jack Crawford for Dams is in 6th. Alex Dern is ahead of Sammy Megatunik, who's in 8th position. Fornaroli and Arvid Lindblad complete our first page. On second page we go, Luke Browning in 11th, and then Vitomo Miata in 12th. Sebastian Montoya is ahead of our winner in the last 2 Formula 2 races, John Sturkson. Roman Stanek, Villa Gomez, Bogdanovic, Cordial, Bennett, and Kush Maney is in 20th position And all the way down in 21st, it is Max Esterson and Kian Shields for AIX. Tom? So Tom, thoughts on that session then?
Yep, not too bad of a session. I thought we saw a little bit more running in this one compared to Formula 3. But it's all going to come down to qualifying later on. He will get the 2 championship points, and he will be on reverse grid pole for the sprint race on Saturday. I cannot wait.
MP Motorsport 1 and 2, will they be able to do it in qualifying later on? Well, you'll have to join us to find out when F2 has laps at the limit. Goodbye.